I was never a fan of school. The monotonous drone of the teacher's voice, the sterile smell of the corridors, the metallic taste of anxiety before every exam. It was a sensory hell. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for the horror I experienced during a school lockdown. I was a senior, ready to graduate. It was a day like any other. Dull gray skies, threatened rain, and the hallways buzzed with the anticipatory energy of upcoming freedom. It was second period, chemistry, and Mr. Thompson was droning on about the periodic table when the PA system crackled to life. "We are now in lockdown. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill." The voice of the principal trembled, injecting terror into our veins. We followed protocol. The teacher locked the door, turned off the lights, and we all huddled in the corner away from the windows. We thought it was a shooter. The waiting began, the deadliest part of any horror. Every creak of the floor, rustle of paper, or breath too loud made us jump. We were sitting ducks, and the terror was in the waiting, the not knowing. But it wasn't a shooter. An hour in, we heard screams, not the kind of screams you hear in movies. Real, visceral, blood-curdling screams that embed themselves in your soul. We sat in silence, the darkness in the room a reflection of the growing dread inside us. The intercom came back to life. The principal's voice, now a fragile whisper, told us to remain in place. Help was on the way. But his voice betrayed the terror that words couldn't convey. In the silence that followed, we heard them, footsteps, too light to be human, skittering across the floors, up the walls, in the ceilings. A girl next to me sobbed quietly. We didn't dare to speak. We didn't dare to breathe. In our silent terror, our eyes adjusted to the dark. I caught glimpses of faces white with fear, eyes that mirrored my terror. Then something moved outside our classroom, a shadow against the frosted glass panel of the door. The skittering sound was louder, and then came the scratching. Scratching at the door, at the walls, a sound that threatened to drown us in madness. Every scratch was a slice into our sanity. In that darkness, terror was no longer a feeling but a physical entity, wrapping its icy fingers around us. We didn't know what it was. We couldn't know. Our adolescent minds weren't equipped to comprehend the horror that lay beyond the thin wooden barrier of the classroom door. Hours passed. The scratching intensified, became rhythmic, hypnotic. Some of us whispered prayers, others sat in silent resignation. The darkness wasn't just around us anymore. It had seeped into us, filling the spaces where hope once lived. Then, silence. A silence so profound it seemed to consume every sound, every breath. We were statues, petrified in terror. The door creaked open. Mr. Thompson, with a bravery I can only now appreciate, went to check. He didn't make it 2 steps before he was pulled into the hallway, his screams adding to the cacophony of terror that filled the air. We were alone, abandoned, lost. It was then that we realized the lockdown wasn't to keep a danger out. It was to keep something in, something unspeakable, unleashed from the bowels of the earth during the construction of the new school wing. And we were its prisoners. The rescue came too late for many. As the SWAT team broke the school's perimeter, they were met not by a human adversary but by something else, something that defied logic, defied explanation. I was one of the lucky ones, or perhaps unlucky. I survived. I live with the memory, the sounds of the scratching, the screams, the unspeakable terror that visited us that fateful day. They never found all the bodies. The official story was a shooter, a tragedy, a national outpouring of grief. But those of us who were there, who survived, we know the truth. We were part of something unholy, a horror story untold, left to fester in the silent, terrifying recesses of memory. Every year, as the anniversary approaches, I hear the skittering, the scratching. It is a sound that will live with me until my final breath, a haunting reminder of the day horror visited us in the place we thought was safe. A reminder of the day we became the true high school lockdown horror story. I always thought that high school was terrifying. The social hierarchy, the constant pressure to fit in, the unrelenting workload, they all painted a picture of an adolescent nightmare. But on one stormy afternoon in October, I learned the true meaning of horror. We had been warned about the storm for days. The Weather Channel painted a dire picture: thunder, lightning, torrential rains, and winds strong enough to uproot trees. For that reason, the school decided to lock us in until it was deemed safe to leave. I was a sophomore, a nobody, a face among the masses, but as the heavy rain pattered against the windows, I was just another student seeking refuge in the echoing halls of Jackson High. The teachers corralled us into the gym, a makeshift sanctuary from the storm's wrath. However, something sinister lurked within these walls, a darkness that was about to reveal itself. As the skies darkened, so did the atmosphere in the gym. Restlessness turned to unease. Whispers turned to silence. I stared at the windows, the lightning illuminating faces twisted in anxiety. It was then I noticed that the school's power was out. The backup generators hadn't kicked in. A group of us, fed up with the confinement, decided to explore the school. The teachers were too preoccupied to notice us slipping away. We navigated through the shadowy hallways, our cell phones our only source of light. In the science wing, we found the first sign of something amiss. The door to the biology lab was ajar, and strange sounds emanated from within. The others laughed it off, a coping mechanism, I guess. I wasn't convinced. Something cold slithered in my spine. A warning, but curiosity propelled me forward. Inside the lab, we found chaos. Tables overturned, glass shattered, and the acrid smell of chemicals permeating the air. The animal cages were empty. Rats, snakes, all gone. Only the echoing sound of dripping water could be heard. Suddenly, a voice shattered the silence. It was a mix of human and something inhuman. Words, phrases, strung together like a symphony of madness. We turned to escape, but the door slammed shut, locking us in. "We're not alone," I whispered. Panic surged. We pounded on the door, but it was futile. The voice grew louder, the words more twisted, a melody of terror weaving through the air. We were prisoners, and something unseen was our warden. Hours turned into an eternity. The voice haunted us, echoing our darkest secrets, fears, sins. One by one, my companions fell into madness. Tears, screams, pleas for mercy filled the cold, metallic air. But I remained lucid, a spectator to the unraveling of minds. At the break of dawn, the storm subsided, and the voice silenced. The door, as if released by an unseen hand, swung open. I stepped into the hallway, a realm of sanity. But the horror wasn't over. The school was changed. Walls stained with dark inscriptions, symbols of an ancient, malevolent force. Bodies of my peers and teachers littered the halls, lifeless eyes reflecting the unspeakable horror they had witnessed. I stumbled through the catacomb of terror, every corner, every room, a testament to the storm's true nature. It wasn't a natural occurrence, but a vessel of evil, awakening a slumbering force within the school. In the aftermath, silence reigned. I was the lone survivor, a witness to the unspeakable. They said it was a gas leak, a tragic accident that incited mass hysteria. But I know the truth. The horror didn't leave with the storm. It lingers, invisible but omnipresent, a silent whisper echoing the terrifying melody of that night. The halls of Jackson High are now a tomb, a monument to the true horror that lurked within its walls, waiting for the storm to set it free. I'm a prisoner of the memory, an eternal sophomore walking the halls of terror. Every thunderclap, every flash of lightning is a reminder of that night when the boundaries of reality shattered and unspeakable evil walked among us. The storm is returning. I can feel it in my bones, and with it, the voice, the horror, the silent whisper that turns dreams into nightmares and sanctuaries into prisons. Jackson High is a mausoleum of terror, and I am its eternal guardian, cursed to relive the horror over and over until the storm claims my sanity, and I join the silent ranks of the damned. A testament to the unutterable terror is all I can offer. A warning whispered from the shadowy corridors of a haunted high school where the boundaries between the natural and supernatural are forever blurred. Beware the storm, for with it comes a silence, a terror, an unutterable horror born in the echoing halls of Jackson High. Every clap of thunder, every streak of lightning, heralds the return of an unspeakable evil that waits, silent and eternal, in the darkness. The sun was setting, casting eerie shadows through the empty halls of Elmdale High School. As the last bell rang, most students rushed towards the exit, a symphony of lockers slamming shut, providing the day's final crescendo. I was among the few who lingered, burdened with detention for an essay I forgot to submit. The room was cloaked in silence, punctuated occasionally by the sharp scratches of pen against paper. Our jailer, Mr. Peterson, stared down at us from his desk, an enigmatic smile dancing on his lips. As the clock's hands marched toward freedom, an announcement crackled through the intercom, jolting us from our silent torment. "Attention students and staff, we are initiating a lockdown procedure. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill." The heavy curtain of dread descended instantly. We were no strangers to drills, but nothing of this gravitas. Panic surged through me, a storm of questions swirling in my mind. Mr. Peterson's glare was replaced by a solemn mask of authority, his voice cutting through our collective terror. "Stay calm," he instructed as he moved swiftly, locking the doors and directing us to a corner of the room, far from windows and doors. We huddled together, the embodiment of vulnerability. Hours slogged by, each ticking of the clock reverberated like the foreboding toll of a distant bell. Information was our denied privilege, fear our omnipresent companion. The room, once a sanctuary of learning, now resembled a prison, the pale moonlight casting sinister shapes on the walls. Whispers floated through the air, a desperate attempt to process our predicament. Outside, the darkness seemed sentient, watching and waiting with malicious delight. Then, the power cut. The moon, our lone sentinel, was overpowered by an enveloping blackness. Screams tore through the silent corridors. The terror was no longer confined to our solitary room. Something sinister was amidst us. Every shadow, every sound became an embodiment of unnamed dread. I clutched my phone, its feeble light piercing the dark. Faces pale with terror mirrored the unspeakable fear igniting my soul. Our bonds of collective imprisonment had rendered us family, and yet, amidst us, a feeling of otherworldly presence lingered. Time stood still, and in the eternal night, horrors known only in the deepest recesses of imagination danced freely. Every creak of the old building, every rustle of the wind sent shivers down our spines. Then silence, not a comforting silence, but one pregnant with foreboding. In those chilling moments, Mr. Peterson's composure shattered. The stoic mask fell, revealing a man equally imprisoned by terror. As hours melded into eternity, the first glimmers of dawn seeped through the gaps in the curtains. With it, a piercing scream resonated, not of terror, but of malicious joy. We huddled closer, prisoners of an unnamed dread. As the first beams of sunlight granted us reprieve from the shadow's embrace, the lock on our door clicked open. Policemen, faces white with terror, ushered us out. The school, once a sanctuary of learning and laughter, was now a crypt of unspeakable horror. I would later learn of the gruesome discoveries scattered throughout the building, hallways echoing with the silent screams of those lost in the night of terror. No explanation sufficed, no rationale provided comfort. For in the harrowing night, the realm of logic and reason had been usurped by an insidious darkness. We were forever changed, bearers of scars invisible yet palpable. In the silence of night, amidst the sanctuary of our homes, the shadows of Elmdale High lingered, eternal sentinels of a night where the barriers between our world and that of unspeakable horror were rendered asunder. The horror of that night, the sinister dance of shadows amidst hallowed halls, the silent screams forever echoing in empty corridors remain etched in our souls. We are the silent bearers of an unspeakable truth. Within the mundane corridors of existence, there lies a sinister realm where unspeakable horrors roam freely, unburdened by the comforting embrace of reason and light.